reaction to what the Lakers have done in the offseason?
Choice is LeBron James's right now. It's up to him on a choice of which team he wants to play for.
We want to let these guys grow together. We want to let them have some continuity. They have no flexibility. This is their team.
The Lakers have all but closed the book on their offseason, and the signing of Matisse Thybulle on Monday made one thing crystal clear. The front office is likely finished making major additions. Nearly $250 million has been invested. The roster has been rebuilt with Luka Dončić at the center of everything. And now the real question is whether those moves actually move the franchise closer to another title. But before we start grading this offseason, there are a few massive storylines you absolutely need to know. The biggest one is that Los Angeles appears to be stepping away from the one move that could realistically elevate this team into true championship contention. At the very same time, a blockbuster move elsewhere in the league may have quietly shifted the landscape because one of the Lakers' toughest rivals suddenly doesn't seem nearly as intimidating. Today, we're breaking down every rumor, every roster decision, and every key development before delivering the final verdict. But first, if you want a shot at winning our huge GTA 6 giveaway, here's exactly what you need to do. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss any future uploads. We're also hosting the same giveaway on Snapchat, X, TikTok, and Instagram, giving you multiple chances to walk away with the prize. With that out of the way, let's stop wasting time and dive straight into the biggest Lakers story of the offseason. Mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. What's up, everyone? Let's begin with the newest addition, because this signing says a lot about the direction the Lakers are heading. Matisse Thybulle has agreed to a one-year veteran minimum contract worth $3.3 million, and honestly, this feels like an excellent pickup for the price. The reason is pretty straightforward. He remains one of the NBA's most disruptive perimeter defenders. Last season, among regular rotation players, he ranked first in the entire league in both steals and deflections per 36 minutes. At first, those stats might sound a little selective, but don't overlook the context. He wasn't playing huge minutes, which actually makes those defensive numbers even more impressive. He didn't just rank near the top, he finished first. Add in his 2 all-defensive team selections and nearly 7-foot wingspan, and it's easy to understand why the Lakers believe he can provide the same type of defensive impact Marcus Smart brought to the floor last season. When I took a closer look at Thybulle's production, one statistic genuinely caught me off guard. Last season, he continued showing legitimate growth as a perimeter shooter. He connected on roughly 35% of his three-pointers during the 2023-24 season, and across the past 2 years, that number has climbed to around 41% after entering the league as a player defenses happily ignored from long range. Pair elite perimeter defense with that level of shooting improvement on a veteran minimum contract, and that's tremendous value for any contender. You're essentially landing a proven 3-and-D contributor for the price teams usually spend on a player buried at the end of the bench. But this is where the conversation becomes a lot more complicated. In many ways, this issue sums up the entire Lakers offseason. Thybulle is still a 6'5" guard. He isn't the long athletic forward this roster has been searching for since free agency began. On top of that, staying healthy has been one of the
biggest challenges throughout his recent career. He's suited up for only about 30 games in each of the last 2 seasons. So while the Lakers certainly improved their perimeter defense at an affordable price, they strengthened a position that wasn't their biggest weakness. What this team truly needed was a bigger, switchable wing capable of defending multiple positions. Instead, they brought in another backcourt defender, and that pattern has defined almost every move they've made this summer. Even so, there's one very encouraging detail you shouldn't ignore. Reports say Thybulle chose the Lakers after speaking directly with JJ Redick and Luka Dončić about how he'd fit within the team's system. That tells you just how much influence Luka already carries inside the organization. This is now the 3rd reported case of Dončić helping recruit a new teammate. He's no longer just the face of the franchise. He's starting to shape the roster almost like an assistant general manager. That kind of influence mirrors what LeBron James held during most of his Lakers run. Keep that in the back of your mind, because those old LeGM jokes might soon be replaced with a brand new nickname built around Luka. There's another situation unfolding that could turn into a serious problem for Los Angeles. After signing Thybulle, the Lakers officially reached 16 players on fully guaranteed contracts. The NBA only allows 15 players on a regular season roster. Under normal circumstances, this wouldn't be a major concern because teams usually waive someone on a non-guaranteed deal without much trouble. The issue is that the Lakers don't have that option. Every one of those 16 contracts is completely guaranteed. There isn't a single easy roster cut available. That means this won't be a routine preseason decision. Someone who actually contributes will have to be moved before opening night. And believe it or not, the situation gets even trickier. Since the Lakers are already well above the salary cap, simply waiving a player won't create meaningful financial relief. That's why a trade appears to be the only realistic solution. In other words, the front office has backed itself into a corner with almost no flexibility remaining. Even more concerning, the player they move could still be someone who plays an important role. Current reports continue linking two names to potential trade discussions: Jarred Vanderbilt and Dalton Knecht. According to Dave McMenamin, the Lakers have explored deals involving both players while attaching the 2 second-round picks they recently received from Washington. Jovan Buha has also reported that the preferred strategy is packaging them together to maximize future financial flexibility. Here's the strange part of the entire situation. Vanderbilt is already one of the Lakers' most valuable defensive players. He's exactly the type of versatile forward capable of switching across multiple positions and slowing down elite scorers. He's also spent most of his Lakers career playing both forward spots. So the player most likely to be traded is already the closest thing they have to the exact defensive wing they've been searching for all summer. Moving him just to pursue another player with almost the same skill set makes the overall plan feel surprisingly difficult to understand. Now, let's shift to the biggest name still being connected to the Lakers, Jonathan Kuminga. If we're being completely honest, he's probably the one available player who fits this roster's biggest need better than anyone else. Reports have linked Los Angeles to Kuminga for virtually the entire offseason. So what's preventing this deal from happening? There are two major obstacles, and both say a lot about how the Lakers are approaching this situation. The first issue is simple. The front office isn't willing to meet the current asking price. Dan Wojcicki reported that negotiations have slowed because Los Angeles refuses to give up valuable draft capital to complete a trade. That tells you everything you need to know. It's not that the Lakers doubt Kuminga's talent, they simply don't believe he's worth sacrificing premium future assets.
The second obstacle is even bigger because the original trade structure has essentially fallen apart. At this point, the only realistic avenue appears to be a sign-and-trade agreement. The Lakers originally expected Jarred Vanderbilt to be sent to Atlanta as part of that framework. Unfortunately for Los Angeles, reports indicate the Hawks are no longer interested in taking on Vanderbilt's contract. After adding Lu Dort, that change in direction actually makes plenty of sense. Now, the Lakers must find an entirely different team willing to absorb Vanderbilt's salary. Suddenly, what once looked like a fairly straightforward transaction has turned into a much more complicated puzzle. Remember, the Lakers still have one more move to make before opening night because the roster has to be trimmed down to the league's 15-player limit. A Jonathan Kuminga trade would instantly solve nearly every issue they're dealing with. They could move 2 players in one deal, bring Kuminga to Los Angeles, get under the roster limit, and finally add the athletic forward they've been chasing all offseason. The problem is time is quickly running out because the Lakers are no longer the only team pursuing him. Reports say the Cleveland Cavaliers are monitoring the situation very closely. Cleveland's entire offseason strategy is also tied to whatever decision LeBron James eventually makes. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that decision becomes official before this video is even uploaded. Then again, we've all expected that announcement before, and it never came. As things currently stand, if the Cavaliers fail to reunite with LeBron, Jonathan Kuminga immediately becomes their top priority. That means the Lakers aren't just trying to outmaneuver Atlanta anymore. They're now competing with another legitimate contender that's just as motivated to get a deal done. The pressure is building by the day, and in the end, everything may come down to LeBron James making his long-awaited decision, which could happen at any moment. When you look at the Lakers' offseason from a bigger perspective, it's obvious they handled the affordable side of improving their defense by signing value players like Ziaire Williams and Matisse Thybulle. But when it came to the biggest and most expensive priority, adding the athletic forward this roster desperately needed, they refused to pay the asking price, and now there's a real chance Cleveland swoops in and steals Jonathan Kuminga before Los Angeles can make its move. That's really the entire Kuminga story when you strip everything else away.
With that covered, let's evaluate every move the Lakers made this offseason and decide whether the front office truly accomplished its mission. Let's go through this roster one need at a time. Entering the offseason, the Lakers desperately needed a true starting caliber center, so they made a massive investment to acquire Walker Kessler, giving up roughly $130 million in commitments, along with a significant collection of draft assets. There's no question Kessler is a quality player, but it's equally clear that Los Angeles paid top dollar to bring him in. They also wanted to improve their outside shooting, so they added Quentin Grimes and Collin Sexton, which looks like a solid move until you remember the roster was already loaded with guards. Their biggest priority, though, was adding athletic wings, and this is exactly where the offseason fell short. Yes, Ziaire Williams and Matisse Thybulle strengthened the perimeter defense on team-friendly contracts, but the Lakers still failed to land the big, versatile forward who sat at the very top of their wish list all summer. That remains the one major box they never checked, and arguably the most important one. They also made the correct decision by keeping Austin Reaves, who averaged 23.3 points per game last season and fully deserved his new maximum contract. I really can't criticize that move, although if his extension had somehow come in about $30 million cheaper, the Lakers probably wouldn't be facing so many financial restrictions today. Looking at the entire offseason as a whole, I'd probably give it a C+, or maybe a generous B- if they somehow managed to land that missing athletic wing before the regular season begins. I also want to give credit where it's due, because they genuinely upgraded several key areas, including center, perimeter shooting, and overall defense. The biggest issue is that they gave up a major portion of their future to acquire Kessler, while still leaving their most obvious roster weakness unresolved. And don't overlook what Ramona Shelburne recently said, because her comments might end up explaining exactly why all of this has unfolded the way it has.
Reactions I heard was how much they gave up for Walker Kessler, not necessarily because he wasn't worth it, because they don't have any assets now to improve that team. When you talk to the Lakers, JJ Redick and Luka Dončić were very involved in helping to recruit these players, and we want to let these guys grow together. We want to let them have some continuity. They have no flexibility. This is their team.
And now the spotlight shifts back to LeBron James, because his decision could become official at any moment. When you step back and look at the Lakers' entire offseason, it's obvious they handled the affordable side of their wing problem by signing defensive specialists like Ziaire Williams and Matisse Thybulle on team-friendly deals. But when it came to making the expensive move for the athletic forward they've targeted all summer, they backed away. And now Cleveland has a real chance to steal Jonathan Kuminga before Los Angeles ever gets the opportunity. That's really the Kuminga story in a nutshell. The Lakers fixed the simple problems, but the biggest one is still staring them in the face. Now it's time to grade the offseason. Heading into the summer, the Lakers desperately needed a true starting center, so they made a huge investment to acquire Walker Kessler, committing roughly $130 million along with valuable draft assets to get the deal done. Kessler is undeniably a talented player, but it's impossible to ignore how expensive that move became. They also wanted to improve their perimeter shooting, so they brought in Quentin Grimes and Collin Sexton, although both additions simply added more guards to a roster that was already crowded in the backcourt. Their biggest priority, however, was finding athletic wings, and this is exactly where the offseason lost momentum. Yes, Ziaire Williams and Matisse Thybulle strengthened the perimeter defense on affordable contracts, but neither player is the long, switchable forward this team has been searching for. That was the most important box on the checklist, and somehow it still hasn't been checked. Keeping Austin Reaves was the obvious decision, because after averaging 23.3 points per game last season, he absolutely deserved his new max contract. I really can't criticize that move, although if Reaves had accepted even a slightly smaller deal, the Lakers probably wouldn't be facing so many financial restrictions today. Looking at everything together, I'd give this offseason a C+, maybe even a B- if they somehow managed to land that missing athletic wing before opening night. I also want to give credit where it's deserved, because they upgraded the center position, improved their shooting, and strengthened the defense. The problem is they gave up significant future flexibility to acquire Kessler, while still failing to address the roster's biggest weakness. And don't overlook what Ramona Shelburne recently pointed out, because her comments seem more accurate with every passing day.
To make matters even more complicated, the Lakers currently have one player too many under guaranteed contracts, while sitting so far above the salary cap that simply waiving someone won't create any meaningful flexibility. They've essentially backed themselves into a corner with almost no room to maneuver, either now or later, and that's a risky position for any contender. We've seen teams push all of their chips to the center of the table before, and the New York Knicks are one of the best recent examples, after acquiring Mikal Bridges, re-signing OG Anunoby, and later trading for Karl Anthony Towns. The difference is New York only pulled that off because Jalen Brunson willingly left around $113 million on the table, while Austin Reeves was never realistically in a position to sacrifice that kind of money. I completely understand why Reeves accepted every dollar, because he entered the league as an undrafted player, and this was the first truly life-changing contract of his career. But under the league's new collective bargaining agreement, championship teams often rely on star players taking less money so the front office can continue improving the roster. If Reeves wasn't able to make that sacrifice, then the Lakers are now hoping Jonathan Kuminga eventually will. There's another detail that's just as important. This offseason shouldn't be evaluated as Rob Pelinka's work alone, because Luka Dončić reportedly played a major role in recruiting several of these new additions. Multiple reports have suggested Luka personally contacted players and helped shape the roster around him. In other words, these are the teammates he wanted. So if this group ultimately falls short, and honestly there's a real possibility that happens, the responsibility won't rest solely on the front office. It will also belong to the franchise superstar who helped build this team. Luka wanted this roster, and now it's time to find out if his vision can actually deliver results. But let's move beyond off-season grades, because the bigger question is whether this team can realistically survive the Western Conference playoffs. To answer that, you don't need to compare the Lakers with every team in the conference. You only need to compare them to the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder, the team that ended their season. If Los Angeles can't beat Oklahoma City, then everything else becomes irrelevant. The encouraging news is Luka Dončić has already proven he knows how to defeat this core. Back in 2024, his fifth-seeded Dallas Mavericks knocked off the top-seeded Thunder in 6 games during the second round. That makes Luka one of the very few superstars in the West who can honestly say he's already cracked Oklahoma City's playoff formula. The other obvious player capable of making that claim is Victor Wembanyama. Now, you might argue that those Thunder were a completely different team, and you'd be absolutely right. Back then, they were still developing, gaining experience, and nowhere near as complete as the championship version we see today. But now the situation has shifted once again. Oklahoma City has entered deep second-apron territory financially, forcing the organization to trim salary and make difficult roster decisions.
The biggest move was parting ways with Lu Dort. That's an enormous loss because Dort is a 2-time all-defensive player and arguably the best perimeter defender on the roster. He's exactly the type of player you'd want guarding Luka Dončić throughout an entire playoff series. He wasn't the only important departure. Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe are gone as well. Suddenly, the defending champions aren't nearly as deep on the perimeter as they were before. Luka has already beaten this group once, and now they're slightly less intimidating. That sounds promising, but don't celebrate just yet because there's still another side to this story. This still isn't the same Oklahoma City squad Luka eliminated 2 years ago. That team had plenty of talent, but very little playoff experience, while today's version already knows exactly what it takes to win a championship. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is now a 2-time MVP, and the core built around Shai, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren remains completely intact. Losing Lu Dort certainly makes them more vulnerable, but it doesn't suddenly transform the Thunder back into the inexperienced team from 2024. It's also important to remember that this very Oklahoma City group swept the Lakers only a few months ago, so the championship window didn't suddenly fly wide open, it only cracked open slightly. The Thunder are still the team everyone else is chasing. The real question is whether the Lakers have built a roster capable of taking advantage of that opportunity. And once again, everything comes back to the same issue we've discussed throughout this entire video. A slightly weaker Thunder team gives Luka a better chance, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams aren't going anywhere, and Luka can't guard every elite scorer by himself.
He needs long, athletic, switchable wings beside him if the Lakers expect to survive those matchups. That's exactly why adding Matisse Thybulle helps, but missing out on someone like Jonathan Kuminga could end up hurting even more. Oklahoma City has opened the door just enough. The only question now is whether Los Angeles actually built the right team to walk through it. And Oklahoma City isn't the only powerhouse standing in the Lakers' way. San Antonio has Victor Wembanyama, just handed him a massive $250 million extension and strengthened the roster by adding Tobias Harris. Houston now features Kevin Durant alongside Alperen Sengun and Amen Thompson. Minnesota still enters the season with Anthony Edwards leading the charge, while Denver continues to build around Nikola Jokic. The Western Conference is loaded from top to bottom, but the Thunder remain the measuring stick every contender has to reach, especially the Lakers. That's ultimately why I landed on the grade I did for this offseason. It wasn't a failure, and it definitely wasn't a complete disaster. The roster has more depth, the defense is better, and the front office added several valuable role players without overspending on secondary pieces. At the same time, they've boxed themselves into a difficult financial situation, with too many guaranteed contracts, almost no cap flexibility, and limited future draft assets. Most importantly, they walked away from the one major move that could have elevated this roster into true championship contention: Jonathan Kuminga. Oklahoma City becoming slightly weaker created an opportunity, but having an opportunity means nothing if you can't capitalize on it. That's exactly where the Lakers stand today. They'll likely win plenty of regular season games with Luka Dončić leading the way, and they'll absolutely be one of the most entertaining teams to watch. But when it comes to defeating the Thunder in a 7-game playoff series, I'm still not convinced they've done enough. Now I want to hear your opinion. Do you think the Lakers truly maximize Luka's championship window, or did they simply surround him with better role players while keeping the same overall identity? And one final question. Should Los Angeles go all in for Jonathan Kuminga, even if it costs valuable future draft picks, or is staying patient the smarter long-term strategy?